Hello, folks. Welcome back. News 24's Annalisa Burgess offers up a puff-piece interview on Minister of Agriculture John Steenhuisen, the pseudo-Stalinist whose P.O. the Seed magazine photoshopped Theo de Jager out of the recent trip to Berlin. Burgess never even bothered to ask Steenhuisen about that communist trick. How can we take journalists seriously when they are complicit in covering up things like that? Asking him questions about a number of issues, including clay pigeon shooting, she asked the Minister of Agriculture about Afrikaner organizations and Donald Trump. On the role of Afrikaner organizations in perpetuating a white victim narrative in the USA, Steenhuisen says, there is no mass expropriation of land. Well, no one said there was, except the media, ANC propagandists, Agri-SA, and John Steenhuisen. You're the ones with that narrative trying to discredit AfriForum and Solidarity, who never made any such claim. You're making the claim to undermine the reality. And that's what propagandists do. He also said there is no genocide in South Africa. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, never stated by AfriForum or Solidarity, only by the media, who perpetuate that false narrative, claiming that South African organizations that claim there's a genocide against Afrikaners. Never done, and John Steenhuisen knows that. So only the media, the ANC, and John Steenhuisen are the ones running around talking about genocide in South Africa. It's not AfriForum, and it's not Solidarity. Words never uttered by them. He said those who spread this misinformation need to recognize that there are real-world consequences. Only, ladies and gentlemen, I seriously doubt that John Steenhuisen recognizes that his actions are actually misinformation. Does he even care? Spreading lies, accrediting things never said by AfriForum or Solidarity to those organizations to discredit them, proving that he is definitely Cyril Ramaphosa's boy. He asked the question, who will suffer if we lose access to American markets? Not the politicians who've made bad decisions, not the BE fat cats who have sat at the top of these networks. Well, it will also not be the Democratic Alliance bigwigs who folded like cheap suits over expropriation without compensation, doing nothing to stop it. The only thing they did about it was whine that they weren't informed. Oh, they didn't tell us. We had to find out from WhatsApp. The lame lawsuit that Helen Zille has filed to stop the legislation will fail. They should have done a proper challenge to it, but the DA is complicit in expropriation without compensation. He says it will be farmers and farm workers for whom these treaties provide a means to sell their products in America. Well, Mr. Steenhuisen, farm products are not the only AGOA beneficiary. The auto industry is the biggest beneficiary, making a ton of money off of the sales of auto parts and automobiles to the United States. Why are you focused exclusively on agriculture? I appreciate that you're Minister of Agriculture, but AGOA is a $3 billion benefit every year, 60 billion rand to South Africa, and it's not just wine or nartkies. He says he knows the organizations are annoyed with him, AfriForum and Solidarity, but he will continue to call out misinformation. Well, sadly, not only is he not calling out misinformation, but John Steenhuisen is spewing the misinformation himself, lying and falsely attributing things to AfriForum and Solidarity. And he says, there's a golden rule. Country first, then party, then self. Our country and its future are at stake here. Indeed, South Africa's future is at stake here. And the conduct of members of the Government of National Unity, mostly ANC, but also here, John Steenhuisen, Cyril's boy, are what are in play. Folks, nope, it's not country first, then party, then self. For John Steenhuisen, it's John Steenhuisen first, the DA second, country third, and sadly, the truth comes last. Now, I'm sorry to have to report on this, folks, and call him out on this, but tell me what he said that was true here. What is here that's true? I will hold politicians to account whether I like them or dislike them. Seems like a decent gentleman, but his political behavior here is reprehensible, as is the propaganda he's spewing. Utter nonsense. Utter nonsense. What say you, South Africa? Do you trust the Minister of Agriculture? Is he correct? Is AfriForum running around and making the claims? Or are the only place you're hearing it in the statements of op-ed disguised as news by the likes of News 24, IOL, The Times Live, The Daily Maverick, and Mail and Guardian, as well as the television networks who sit there and, wow, whatever. No, these organizations have not said that. There have been people who have said that, and that's been falsely attributed to them. And John Steenhuisen knows that full well. But he chooses to do a puff piece interview in which he's not even asked the question, how in the world do you allow your ministry to Photoshop out a key member of your delegation to Germany for the agricultural conference? That's like Stalin, isn't it? Why has nobody called John Steenhuisen out on that? Not one journalist in South Africa has asked a question of that minister. The entire story has been covered up. Disgraceful, shameful, illegitimate governance. That's what it is. Cheers, South Africa.